Well, good morning, real estate fans. This is Alice Lema, John L. Scott, broker here in Southern Oregon. We're doing another live stream on Facebook and YouTube today. And for those of you who have been waiting all morning to hear this, sorry again for the technical difficulties. It's been quite a learning experience as we get new technology, new microphones and such. But I do have a very interesting market update today for you. And I'm so excited to finally get to do this and have it stay on the live stream because we've had to delete the others. So anyway, moving forward, one of the things that happened this week, well, first of all, our area, state of Oregon, is entertaining the phase 2 reopening. And our counties here, Jackson County, Josephine County, Klamath County, have submitted their reports to Governor Brown. And we are in the process of beginning phase 2 opening. Yay! From the corona. So it's been a really difficult time for a lot of our locals, but thank you to our county officials, our health workers, all the essential workers that got us through this time, all the restaurant people. Thank you to the health services department. Yeah, we're just super grateful. And now we just still have to be careful that nobody else gets sick. So, in the meantime, what does all this have to do with real estate? Well, interestingly enough, in Southern Oregon, at least, we still had a lot of housing activity during the coronavirus shutdown. And some of it was just natural real estate. Life situations, people getting born and absolutely needing new places to live. Some renters getting notices that their landlords were selling and the tenants deciding to move and buy houses. We have a lot of that. The interest rates are really, really low. And then also, we just had people deciding they'd had enough. They'd been quarantined in their house and they hated it and they were just done and they wanted to have something more comfortable and bigger. A lot of people are working from home now. So all of that added up to a really busy time during our shutdown. So here we are now coming in phase 2. We're getting a lot of attention from relocators from Seattle, from California, from New York. All of a sudden we have people all parts of the country looking around and saying, okay, I get to take my job with me now. My employer and I have both discovered I don't have to go to an office. So where do I really want to be? If I could be anywhere in the world and still make the money I make at Google or one of the big companies in a big city, I mean, fill in the blank, where do I want to live? And Southern Oregon is really attractive to a lot of people. We have predominantly clean air, clean water, relatively low crime compared to some of the big cities, and the lifestyle is amazing. That's why we all love it here. So, but that can very easily create some huge changes for our little valley coming up, and we're going to talk about my predictions at the end of our little podcast here. For right now, I do want to point out a couple of interesting things that are happening in the multifamily market. This is a little subsection of real estate. This would be your duplex, triplex, fourplex, fiveplex apartment buildings, that kind of thing. It's called multifamily. And the reason I'm bringing it up is because it is a very active micro market right now. Those properties are selling so quickly. And just yesterday, a sixplex came on the market on Rose Street in Phoenix. So 24 hours ago. And it said you could not show it. They wanted offers written sight unseen. Well, they got an offer like that this morning. And all these investors are circling and they're expecting multiple offers, and nobody gets to see it until after you have an accepted offer. And usually in multifamily, you at least get to see one unit before you write an offer. But so anyway, $600,000 for a sixplex. In Southern Oregon, $600,000 is a lot of money. Out of town in big cities, $600,000 is not a lot of money. But the point is not so much the price tag as the ratio of what each unit is being priced at. $100,000 a unit is a really good deal in Southern Oregon right now for a multifamily. Those are like last year's prices or the year before. We just don't have units, buildings like that, whether it's a duplex or an eightplex. We don't usually have them selling for $100,000 a door is how the investors say it, $100,000 a door anymore. So that's great pricing. That's partly why I think they're getting so much action on that little sixplex. And I'm not promoting any particular property. I'm just using it as an example because 600,000 is a lot of money. And so to get that much action that quickly and you can't even see it, I think that's a significant moment in time. So if you are interested in that kind of a property for investment or to live in, you can reach out to me. You can reach out to anybody you want, but I would love it if you reached out to me. And the reason you might want to look at buildings like this is twofold. One is for great investment, even though we have rent control statewide in Oregon. I think either one of the only ones in the union, maybe the only one in the union that has statewide rent control. It's still a great business opportunity to be a landlord in Oregon. You just have to follow different rules. And quite frankly, we need good landlords. But it is creating a real shortage of buildings as people transition their portfolios if they're investors. We also have a lot of families now that are buying these, and that did not used to be the case so much. And again, I think the pandemic just really kind of brought it home to people that they want to be with their extended family, but they don't want to be all under one roof. And in Southern Oregon, if you want a 2-family setup, a 3-family setup, a 4-family setup, you're starting to talk about pretty big money. You're talking like $600,000, $700,000, $800,000 here. But it would be on land. It'd be in the Applegate. It would be outside of Ashland. It would be Sam's Valley. It would be outside Williams, something like that. Rogue River, where we have our bigger spreads, but a lot of families cannot afford that. So they're looking to buy duplex, triplex, fourplex, maybe sixplex, and then they all live there. So the side effect of that, I think, is very interesting because if you start having these competing buyer pools, is how we say it. You have the regular investor group, that's usually who goes after these units. And then you have families, or what we call owner occupied people, going after these units. The demand is double. And if the families move in, you're removing all those units from the tenant pool. Why am I going on and on about this? Because they're all interconnected and it's creating a dynamic in Southern Oregon. And then you start introducing people relocating. What is the face? How is the face of Southern Oregon going to change in the next 5 to 10 years? And so we're kind of working up and having that conversation right now. So again, these are micro movements. This is just 1 week that we're identifying, but I think it's a very poignant moment in time where we have these ridiculously low interest rates and we have all this attention from out of towners that we didn't have as much, and people can bring their jobs. So how is that going to affect our economy? And some of the families that want to be together because of the side effect of the corona, whether they're investors or not, I think is really creating a different dynamic with our multifamily buildings. So if you're looking to one of these buildings to solve your investment problem or your family housing problem, a couple of things to keep in mind. If you can have some of the units still be available to be rented, then that income helps your balance sheet. It also insulates you from life situations because you still have some money coming in. It also looks great to the lender, and it's easier to finance. If you're paying cash, then that doesn't matter. It's just a matter more of having extra income in case you need that. But if you don't need that and you just want, to fill the units with your family, you can do that. The other thing to keep in mind is the residential mortgages. Like if you're buying a house, those residential mortgages are flexible enough to allow you to buy a duplex, a triplex, or a fourplex, up to 4 units if you live in it, or if somebody, like if you're buying it with your grandma or you're buying it with your millennial kids or whoever, you're buying it with someone else, only one of you has to live there. So this is a great strategy for families right now. If you have people in your family that you want to help support get into real estate, they can be a junior partner. We can talk about that on a different podcast. But the point is that the regular residential mortgage lenders will do this kind of scenario up to 4 units if one of the people on the contract lives there. Now, if you're doing 5 units or more, that's considered a commercial loan, and you have to have a different financial strength. You have to have a bigger down payment. Those down payments for a commercial 5 unit and up, those are like 25, 30% down, and they're not 30-year. They're usually shorter, and the interest rate is higher. Where if you can stay in the fourplex or, duplex, triplex, fourplex, you can actually get in on a VA, which is no money down. You can get in with a FHA, which is 3.5% down. That's a double-edged sword. There's other things about FHA we should talk about later, because too much to go into right now. And then conventional, you're going to have to talk to your lender, because some conventional programs will let you do less than 20%, some won't. So that's a little bit of a mixed bag. But the point is that for very little money, you can buy one of these if one of you is willing to live in it, which I think is great. And then if you are an investor, you're going to want 20% or more down. So where that leaves us is potentially having really shortage of units for our tenants. And my heart breaks for them, because Southern Oregon has had a real shortage of housing. Well, Oregon anyway. That's partly why Governor Brown did the executive order for the statewide rehab on the rental laws, the statewide rent control. But our families, this is how they're solving their problem in some respects, so that they can be together, especially if the corona comes back or there's some other kind of issue where they need to have some kind of a shutdown. At least they're together and they can keep an eye on each other and help each other. So when we start having more demands on a particular micro market of housing, it may not affect the overall area completely, but it will start pushing into the other overall areas and start seeing some effects. So when we have people coming from out of town and they're looking to house all their relatives, or we have locals trying to house all their relatives, and then those units are not available to the tenants, that starts to create a little more of a crisis in the rental department. So the advice we have right now for tenants is, because the interest rates are so low, and during the corona, some of the lenders have been way more flexible about qualifications. Some have actually gotten more strict, but some haven't. We even have some lenders that are not having appraisals. So you can get into contract and not have it, the dollar amount double checked, or the condition double checked by an appraisal, which is the normal process. So if you can get into contract on something and you're a tenant and you can do this for 3.2% interest rate, we actually had somebody with really good credit get like a 2.8 regular mortgage this week. So I just feel like we have a little bit of an opportunity. We have a little squish with the lenders. We have a little squish, with the interest rates. So if you're a tenant, you have a moment in time here where you can kind of jump in and grab something. And if you can't do it on your own, then let's sit your family down, or your extended family, or, everybody knows a successful real estate investor. There's a lot of successful real estate investors, and quite a few of them are open to doing some kind of a cooperative deal with somebody, or being a part of something if they're trustable and they're a good risk. So it doesn't hurt to start having that conversation with your friends and family. If you trust them and they trust you, that can be a way to get something and just get moved in and get it done in the next few months. And then as the market goes up and the years go by, then maybe you can buy them out and get something on your own. So I think that's a strategy that's needs to be looked at more often, and it just kind of gets set aside, because people like to own things themselves, and I get it. I'm the same way. But right now we just have such an opportunity, and I'm afraid that in 3 to 5 years we're going to look back and go, oh my gosh, these are the people that really missed out on the opportunity because they couldn't go it alone and they didn't want to ask for help. So just something to think about, just food for thought. And then in the meantime, the people that are moving here from out of the area, from what I can tell, and this is just by me, this is one person, one agent, but I do talk to a lot of people. I do talk to a lot of other agents, and I'm starting to see a profile in a good way, kind of a list of common traits from the buyers that are moving in right now from the big cities. And they seem to be younger, working, family type people. And the only reason I'm bringing that up is predominantly Southern Oregon has been older. For quite a while, we have been one of the retirement destinations. We get a lot of active retired people, healthy retired people coming from other places in big cities. They sell their assets, they get their retirement, and we're one of the places they go. And they like it because we have the mountains nearby. We have great services for medical. I mean, look at the two fantastic hospitals. We have Asante and we have Providence, and they're both really big hospitals. Those two hospitals service a huge geographical area. I mean, I think we are the primary medical facility between Sacramento, California, and maybe even as far as Portland. I mean, I know there's services in Eugene, but between like Northern California and Northern Oregon, we're kind of it. So that's hundreds of miles. And there are facilities up in Klamath that are great. There are facilities in Grants Pass that are great. And there's community hospital in Ashland. But I'm talking about like the really big where you can have Mercy flights, the huge oncology center, the huge cardiac care, the kidney, the eye surgeon people, like, it's like it's here in Medford. And so when people are looking to relocate, and they're older, that's one of the things on their list to check out. So we've had all these older people come here and bring their retirement and settle in, and that's created a certain demographic influence, I guess is how we could say it. And it's all been great. But if we start getting an influx of families, working people bringing their high paying jobs from other places and they set up households here, I'm really curious to see how that changes the face of Southern Oregon. And it's not just prices. If you get a big influx of a new demographic, well, how likely is it that our services are going to change? Because as we're coming out of the corona and we've had furloughs and job losses and business losses, Southern Oregon's pretty nimble, I think, business-wise and just community-wise. I think we're adaptable if we start getting an influx of a new group of people, that our service providers will adjust, they'll pivot, they'll adapt, and we'll see some new and different services. But this is all just by Alice. I think that there is going to be an impact. We had so many relocators during the shutdown that I've just been waiting to watch now that the stay-at-home orders are being lifted in California, Oregon, and Washington, and actually nationwide. Everybody's going through some kind of a getting more things open and trying to get more back to normal. It's going to be really interesting to see not only the rest of the summer, but early next year, how our little area changes. So where does that leave our locals? So our local wages are not keeping up with big cities. We just couldn't in the past because of location. So this is the other thing I'm curious to see is what's going to happen to our wages if the world starts evening out, because we don't have to have location be such a predominant weight in people's decision for their job and their lifestyle and where they set up their household. If that is taken off the table, then what happens to Southern Oregon businesses? What happens to wages? And maybe not much will happen. I'm just curious to see. But I am so happy for our local economy that we are getting to open up a little bit more. We predict to have a very strong housing market here in Southern Oregon for the rest of the summer. And if you are selling a property, you may want to jump in like right this second. This is the first week of June or so. We still have a shortage of listings. I think a lot of people were holding off to wait and see what happened with the coronavirus, but We still sold quite a few houses during the pandemic. And now that the stay-at-home orders are being lifted, if you are thinking of putting your house on this summer, because the inventory is so low, I think you have a stellar opportunity right this second, like in the next 5 days, 10 days, 15 days, maybe 20 days, like the next 1 to 3 weeks. If you can get your house on the market that soon, you'll have way less competition. So I think we're about to have our normal selling cycle. Southern Oregon is seasonal. Our housing market is kind of seasonal. We usually sell a lot of houses between March, April, May, June, July, that sort of thing. And it had to do with school. Well, school's been out. So, and maybe it'll go back in September. I work with a lot of teachers. A lot of teachers are moving right now because their classes, they're all they're doing is cleaning out their classrooms, and they're doing a lot of stuff online and trying to get ready for what's coming next. And they tell me that they think that the schools are going to open up in September, but we'll just have to wait and see because all that can change. But if we don't have that normal seasonality driven by the school year, then all the listings got pushed to later in the summer. And if you're ready to go, you've had your inspection, your house is clean, you can let us come in and take pictures and get you on the market in like 3 to 5 days, you will stand out and you're more likely to get sold quicker and not have to fuss with everything. The only downside is short inventory, low inventory. You're not going to have many choices for where you're moving to, but if you can be a little more flexible, I still think you're going to get a great deal. And then I have a whole batch of buyers that are saying, well, we want to wait till all the listings come online so we have more choices. Well, you know what? This is a very unpredictable time. And it's very hard to time a market, whether it's for waiting for more inventory or prices or whatever. I just don't recommend that. I don't even recommend that to investors. I think it's better if you look at what's available, find something that you like, that you can afford, that meets your needs, and just get it and get on with your life. This idea of trying to time the market, getting a better deal, there's going to be more houses to choose from, the price is going to go down. I don't think so. I just think the elements that are playing into our little area right now, especially with the out of towners, a lot of those people are cash. They can kind of pay whatever they want. That means in a multi-offer situation, you're just not going to win over a cash deal. It's very hard to anyway. So I just know it's really weird out there right now in housing land, but that also means there's a lot of opportunities. So I'm very excited. I'm very hopeful. And I'm really glad to have this week behind us because it was hard on many, many levels. But the fact that we're getting to reopen is just fantastic. And Southern Oregon is so resilient anyway, but it is really good to have this behind us. So next week, we're going to talk more about what's coming up from the amount of listings and how many people are going to be putting their house on the market, how many people actually got listed and sold versus pricing too high and just languishing, or having a property that either didn't look good. And that doesn't have to do with age. It just, even older houses that are not updated, just have them be clean and in good repair so that somebody can move in. If you can just provide that level to the house that you're selling, I think you'll do okay. So not a lot I don't want to cause alarm bells to go off, but I do want to point out these little blips, these little micro movements. That's all they are right now, are micro movements, but that's how bigger trends get started, is by watching the micro movements. And I really like to watch the micro movements because it helps all of us know kind of what's happening right now and maybe for the next couple of weeks. But if it is going to get legs and become a trend, then we saw it first and we could get a little bit more ready, which is always fun. So right now, multifamily is definitely hot. If you've got buildings to sell or you've got duplexes, triplexes, fourplexes, please call me and let me know that you're interested in getting on the market. And we can actually line up. We have so many buyers for those kind of properties. I mean, you saw 600,000 in Phoenix in one day and nobody even got to see it. So on that one in particular, because they didn't get to see it, if they don't like it when they see it, maybe it'll come back on the market. So here we are at the end of the week. I think this is June 5th. So we'll look like midweek next week, and then we'll talk about that on the next podcast and see if it came back on the market. And if you're getting those alerts on your apps, whether it's the John L. Scott app, the AliceLema.com app, Zillow, Realtor.com, whatever you're using, the category to look at is back on market, but they say BOM. So check out your BOMs, because those are people that just lost a buyer, and sometimes they're in a position to be more flexible because they just lost their deal and they're like, how do they move on with their life? But if that one comes back on the market, we'll definitely talk about it. But there's so many people interested in those buildings, even at $600,000, that I just don't see that one staying on the market very long. So again, if you've got multifamily, you own multifamily, and you're thinking about selling or just changing your portfolio, maybe you want to take advantage of the interest rates and sell off some assets and get some different ones, then this would be a great time to do that. If you're a big family or you're a big group, you don't even have to be related. If you are a group and you want to do a group purchase, multifamily might be the thing for you. But you're going to be in town. If you want to be outside of town, then we still have a lot of properties available, and they are starting to sell more quickly, where last year a lot of them in the some of those bigger spreads are in the $500,000 on up to $1 million, $1.5 million. But we're starting to sell those now. And part of it is because groups of people are coming together. So you can have 3 or more buyers on a contract, and between them, they can purchase these bigger spreads. And you can also have a mortgage. So just because you have more than one person on your contract, you can still qualify together for a higher rate. And a lot of people don't know you can do that. So I have a few lenders that are very practiced at that kind of a deal. Not everybody can do that multiple person, multiple family loan situation. But I've got people who can do it. And it's also creating some action in those higher price properties that were really kind of languishing. So you can still get some pretty good deals in those bigger spreads and those higher price ranges, but it's not as good as it was last year. So that market is changing. The multifamily market is changing. We still have a little softness in in the outside of Ashland and Jacksonville, because we have to talk about those separately, because those have their own little world, their own little financial pricing world. But if you're looking in Central Point, Grants Pass, Jackson County, Medford, East Medford, Southwest Medford, that like high 300, 350, 375 on up to 500. Some of those properties people are getting really good deals on, and I'm always surprised. And it's interesting because they might not do a price reduction, but they'll take a lower offer because they were just thinking about doing a price reduction. So if you're buying in that kind of 350 to 500 range, we should talk about that strategy. I'm not necessarily recommending lowballing people, but if it's been on the market a long time or they came back on the market, that might be an opportunity. And if you're selling and you're in a hurry, you don't have to fire sell price anything, but you need to be kind of like in the middle of where your neighborhood is or where your particular market is. Otherwise, the buyers are going to move on to something else. Just because there's a lot of activity doesn't mean people want to overpay. It doesn't mean they want to buy something that's not in great shape. So, but it's all just kind of moving through its own cycle right now. So getting back to Ashland and Jacksonville, those properties are moving. People like to be near the university, or they like how close it is to California, or they like the Shakespeare, something like that. So that market has a different price point, as does Jacksonville. So those properties, you're probably going to see the deals more in the 450 to 700 range. And I don't know why that little mid-range right now has a tiny bit of softness, where the higher ends are starting to move. But I do know that some of those higher ends are moving because they've got people coming from out of town that just qualify higher, or they're doing group purchases, and that makes them qualify higher. So here we are, beginning of our summer, coming out of the corona. We made it. And thank you again to all the officials and all the services and all the people. Thank you to all the humans for doing everything you could to get us through that. Wow, it was so hard. But again, Southern Oregonians, we're resilient, we're tough. And that's part of what makes us special. So if you've got any questions, if you have any comments, would love to have you just chime in. We're going to do this every week on Friday morning. I know it was hard this morning. And I do apologize again for all my technical difficulties, but we're getting through it. And I think next week we'll have our normal 10 o'clock time instead of 12 o'clock because that's how many problems I had today. But as always, I'm here to help you if you have any questions or need some consultation with your real estate. My number is 541-301-7980. I always have an opinion. I've been an investor in Southern Oregon myself since the 1990s. I jokingly say I made a lot of money, lost some money, and made it back, which gives me a different perspective. But I've also been an agent for 11 years. So, as soon as my little ones were up and out, that's what I did. I got a license, and I got my license at the bottom of the crash, like in 2009. So I think I have a really interesting perspective. And like I said, just always have an opinion. So just reach out, let me know. And then if you've got anything you want to talk about on the podcast, just go ahead and hit me up and we'll definitely touch on it as a topic. There's lots and lots of things going on in Southern Oregon. Next week, we're going to talk more about hemp and what that industry is doing or not doing in our area. As well as the local residential market. So hope you have a beautiful weekend. Enjoy your loved ones. Enjoy what Southern Oregon has to offer. Be safe, be well, and we will see you again in a week. And thank you again for all your love and support. Appreciate you all. Alice Lema, broker, John L. Scott, Southern Oregon.